Thank you for tuning in to Unmasking Autism with AFO. I am your host, Carley Marissa Dummett. This podcast is presented by the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma and funded by the Oklahoma State Department of Health. For those who don't know, the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma strives to improve the lives of Oklahomans with autism across the lifespan. Before we jump in, I would just like to say that this podcast will discuss autism, suicide, mental health and wellness, among other topics, with autistic individuals and different professionals, with the goal of unmasking stereotypes, increasing awareness, advocating for mental health and wellness, and attempting to shatter the stigmas of these topics through conversation and personal experience. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unmasking Autism with AFO. I am your host, Carley Marissa Dummett, and I have a very special guest with me today, my friend and awesome colleague. I'm so glad to be able to sit down and speak with them. Gale Hann, hello.
Hello.
Would you mind just introducing yourself and telling everyone a bit about you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Gale Hann. As Carley said, I use they, them pronouns. I work in public health and do a lot of research related to autism and disabilities and sexual health. Outside of that, I'm an autistic person. I have a lot of other disabilities, including things like learning disabilities and PTSD. I'm a trans person, I'm a queer person, and I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you, and it is so nice to see you. It has been a while.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna just jump right in. So first question is based on your work and personal experiences. Why is it that you think autistic people are at such high risk of dying by suicide?
There's a lot of reasons, I think. Autistic people are statistically way more likely to experience abuse and experience trauma. Things like emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse and assault. And autistic people also interpret traumatic experiences differently. Sometimes people have hyposensitivity to their environment and their experience. Sometimes people have hypersensitivity. And so that can make these traumatic events seem more intense, or it can make them seem less intense, which can sometimes cause them to go on for longer than maybe they should. Autistic people, I think, like a lot of marginalized groups, experience a lot of discrimination in both big and small ways. And that can be from things like peer bullying to things like being discriminated in workplaces or by healthcare providers. I think autistic people also, from the moment they're born, are placed into a world that was largely not made for them, and are then expected to go against their innate nature or way of being and try and mask and be a part of this world that isn't for them. And that is so incredibly hard. And also it's tough to feel like your innate self is inherently wrong. And I think lastly, there's a lot of intersectionality with autistic people and other marginalized groups who are also at high risk of suicide. I mean, as a transgender and queer person, there's a lot of autistic, trans, and queer people. And both of these groups experience increased discrimination, especially in healthcare and employment and school settings. And so these things just build on each other. And so there's just a lot there.
It is a lot, and I don't know how you feel, but I really resonate with the just inherent feeling like inherently like who you are is wrong. And I don't think enough neurotypical people are aware of how autistic people, and also like you said, like other marginalized groups, like it's a very hard thing every single day to like learn to eventually be okay with the fact that, hey, who I am on like my natural instinctual level is not how this world is programmed. And instead of letting it make me depressed and suicidal, I have to figure out a way to cope with it and try to thrive in a world that's literally not built for you.
Yeah.
It's hard. Okay, and so based on research, the pandemic especially has increased the suicide rate. So can you talk a little bit about the autistic community and maybe why there's a rise in that area?
Yeah, I think, again, there's probably a lot there. I know that for everyone, and probably it impacted autistic people more, our routines were just severely, abruptly messed up. And that's so hard to adapt to. And everyone felt this increased social isolation, this increased lack of resources, and also I think just the hopefulness for the future sometimes can be really stark when experiencing such a large global crisis. But for autistic people specifically, I just think everything that folks struggle with on a daily basis was just amplified during the pandemic, and it was just really hard to recover from that. And I know personally, a lot of the things that I've really worked to learn how to do that are innately really hard for me, like, I don't know, like driving, I guess is an example. During the pandemic, I wasn't doing those things as much. And so then there was almost kind of like this skill regression. And then I had to relearn how to do things that I once had built up coping mechanisms for. And so that was really hard too. So there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, no, that's true. It was a huge thing. So let's talk about some other warning signs. Like, for example, masking. Mm-hmm. I recently attended a talk a virtual talk with this woman from the Laurie Center for Autism, and she really dug into, or she sent out a study, but a lot of people who are aware of the studies and, language out there, masking is not good. It's something we have to do, but it's not good for us and it's not good for your mental health. So can you just talk more about that from professional aspect?
Oh, masking is so hard. There was this advocate who I really admire who talked about quote, who taught you to mask? Because I think some people learn how to mask from peers or family members as a coping mechanism, where they have to learn how to mask in order to not be bullied or to be included. And it's just this expectation. But then sometimes almost from a therapeutic approach, people are taught how to mask so that way they can obtain these social expectations. And both, I think, are harmful in different ways. And masking, it just takes a lot of energy. And I think it builds on that idea of your innate way of being is inherently wrong. And so that's, I think, what causes a lot of this mental health strife is this constant, perpetual internal battle 24/7. Yeah.
No, it's so true. And, as with lots of things, it seems illnesses and psychological, issues, the Laurie Center for Autism, they had posted a study that went more into masking, and it was saying how women, women identifying people as well, masking for them is even more detrimental to their mental health, because it's women are already, both sexes, all people, it's society for thousands of years have been no, you're this and you're this and you have to act like this, you have to act like this. And I thought it was interesting because it's the stereotypical viewpoint of what a woman is so, not thinking of the correct word, but you know what I mean? It's I don't know. I don't want to get too ridiculous sounding, but I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because it's there's pressure on people to be societally what is put upon you, and then an autistic person, woman identifying, and then it's so they're trying to fit into what society says a woman is, and then you're autistic on top of that, and then you're masking. And I just thought that was strange. I was all right, so it's even worse for those people because it's there has so much on it. And I don't know how you are. For me, that internal battle, I also feel sometimes masking when I'm not, or when I'm alone and trying to get back to center, sometimes it messes with my sense of identity, because I'm well, who am I? Just like inherently, it's almost like masking for so long has made me feel like my sense of identity shifts all of the time because it's unstable, because I'm constantly trying to be perceived correctly by other people. Do you ever feel like that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned, I guess, just like womanhood as a part of it too. I remember when I was a kid, I was like obsessed with magazines, like 17 magazine or People. Yep. And I would like take every single fashion tip and like make almost like data sets with them, trying to figure out like how to be a person. And I would like inventory my entire closet and like come up with outfits based on the magazines, and I would like keep track of them so I wouldn't repeat a certain amount in a certain day. And it was like so much effort. And I don't even know if like it was something I cared about, but it was just something that I felt so compelled to do. And now as an adult where I don't do that, it is really hard to, I don't know, I think I feel that pressure a lot at work. I think I mask the most in like this professional capacity where I'm pretty much mostly work with people who aren't autistic, and the expectation is to behave a certain way and monitor your body a certain way and wear certain clothing and work certain hours and do certain things. And it's so hard to, even if I am like allowed to be myself, to do it, because that's just not the normal. And I like don't even know how to be myself at a certain point.
I feel like I am the most myself when I am completely alone. Like no one else is around me. I'm all by well, maybe my animals, but you know, they're never judging me. Like it's nice to know I'm never being judged. All they do is love me. But yeah, like, and then I don't know. It's very fascinating, and I could literally talk for hours about that. But so let's talk about how family, friends, and professionals can help someone who is autistic and having suicidal thoughts, feelings, or ideations, and some warning signs that they may be showing. Like how, many professionals can sometimes cause unintentional harm from lack of knowledge and understanding.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess just talking about support first, warning signs second, maybe. I think it's kind of like that Taylor Swift song of like, where I think people and their personhood and their identity need to be celebrated as opposed to just like tolerated. And like, I think affirming anyone's identity or sense of self is so important, as like not only being like, okay, you can exist in this space and I won't like kick you out of my house or something, but to really be proud of who they are. I think just being autistic is something to be proud of, because there is this innate struggle that is so hard. I think when you have a disability like autism, like I have had disabilities my entire life, and I've known I was disabled since I was like 5 or 6, and it innately puts you in these systems that are based on segregation and are based on othering, and that's so innately hard to break out of. And so I think just acknowledging that if someone is autistic in your life or in your waiting room or is your autistic patient, that like that is something to be proud of them for, because it like them just being there is like a triumph in some ways. And I think also just another really important thing is to providers and parents and advocates can like presume competence. I think my most harmful like provider interactions especially, I had one just recently the other day where I saw a psychiatrist for my mental health, and once I told them my diagnosis, it was like a flip switched in their brain, and suddenly for the next like 40 minutes they were talking to me like I was 5 years old, and it stopped being a conversation between adults and it started being like an authoritarian figure like lecturing a child about what to do and how they're being wrong and how they're being bad and these things are unacceptable, and it was bizarre to be talked to like that as someone who is a professional and has all these things. And I think I was talked to like that a lot when I was like a kid in special education classes, but then 20 years later to be talked to like that again, it's I think so harmful. And so I think just assuming that even if someone doesn't talk or isn't making eye contact with you or whatever, that they're still competent in treating adults like adults is so important. But I guess for warning signs, I think whenever I've been the most suicidal or having the hardest time, like my struggles are amplified. Like I sometimes have had like self-injurious stimming or stuff, and when my mental health is the worst, that's the worst. Or I've had a lot of like issues with food, with like having a limited diet or only eating certain foods, and like my diet gets super limited whenever I'm most stressed, that type of thing. And I think, you know, like things that a lot of people struggle with, like I am less communicative when I'm really depressed. I'm less likely to reach out to folks and check in. I'm less likely to respond to messages. A lot of stuff like that.
Same. Yeah, you know, I feel like when I have a depressive episode, I vacillate between I'm not hungry at all or I will overeat because I'm like eating all my emotions.
Yeah,
you know. I relate to that too. And so the psychiatrist that you were just talking about, was that your first time seeing them?
It was,
okay.
Yeah. And I am never going back there,
okay.
You know?
So that's what I wanted.
Which is sad.
Yes, but I guess that's something I personally think more people should look at, because I also have been in and out of therapy and seen psychiatrists since I was a very small child. And someone explained to me when I was in my 20s that when you are shopping around for the right therapist or shrink, like look at it like dating. I feel like more people should know that, in my opinion. Like, you don't have to talk to someone just because they're there and they're willing to talk to you. You should find a provider that is willing to acknowledge you, not infantilize you, not talk down to you. I had a therapist who knew nothing about autism, and so since they knew nothing about autism, and autism in females is different than it is in males, a lot of times they kept trying to tell me that I didn't have autism, I had borderline. And I was like, no, I do not, I have autism. And then eventually I was with them for too long. That's what I mean. I should have broken up with them. But, you know, I stayed with them for an extended period of time, and then they educated themselves on autism. And then eventually they came back and like, oh my God, you know what? You're so sorry. Or I'm so sorry. You don't, I was wrong. And it was frustrating for me because it was like I was having to fight to be like, no, when really a lack of education on their part. They didn't know any better, and so they were only working within their parameters. And so, like, what is something from your opinion, like, if there's a professional out there who hasn't been trained in autism, or they want to be able to serve autistic individuals better, what can they do to increase their professional toolbox?
Absolutely. Well, I think first would just be to do some self-education. I mean, if you are someone who hasn't had an autistic client yet, like, you will at some point. And if you already have some and you still aren't educated, it's like the time is now to learn about autism in all populations, you know, all age ranges, including adults, including teens, all genders, and to learn about the kind of like co-occurring things that autistic people experience that might be seeking your care for. I think mental health and autism like are co-occurring all the time, various mental health conditions, but there's also a lot of physiological health conditions that co-occur with autism. So just knowing as a provider that like this is a population that will likely be part of these conditions if you treat certain things is like really important, I think.
Yeah, and in terms of the intersectionality and the data that shows that autistic people and the 2S LGBT community really overlap. I had a guest on a few weeks ago, and she was saying how, I think she said 40%, but when it comes to that community, just asking and like you said, accepting a person for who they are, and like, for example, pronouns, that's what the statistic was. Respecting someone enough to use the pronouns that they tell you they identify with reduces the risk of suicide by 40%.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I like some of my worst healthcare experiences, especially when seeking things like gynecological health, have been with providers where I explicitly tell them multiple times what my pronouns are, and they still, during the exam, just like ignore it and say the wrong thing or say the wrong name. And that's been like by far the most harmful to my mental health. And if they just like made that tiny baby change, it would just like mean everything. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was her. But
yeah.
I mean, 40%, that's such a large number. And I was like, wow, one small thing that other people can do to accommodate and just be kind and show respect, you know, and like, I want to thank you, like, you know, when we first met, you know, hey girl, it was like a natural part of my vocabulary, and you know, you helped me to really be mindful of the fact that I need to adjust my vocabulary because I didn't want to seem rude or disrespectful. And you know, I have just always really appreciated that from you, because you really, just meeting you has helped me open up my own mind and become a better person and expand my own knowledge base. And I think you're so great. I'm really so happy you're here. I really am. So let's talk about wellness for a second. So what are some things that you do to take care of yourself and show yourself wellness, and how do you practice it?
Yeah, I think for mental health, the number one, by far, absolute best thing I've done for my mental health is just like be myself and to be brave enough to transition. I think by far that is like the kindest, bravest thing I've ever done for my mental health. Like I can't even begin to describe how much it's improved my well-being. So that's number one. And I think it's really interesting because before I decided to start transitioning, and my mental health was by far the most unstable. I had providers kind of almost try to talk me out of it and say, you know, your mental health is so unstable right now, maybe we should just like get that in check before adding hormones into the mix or something like that. And it's night and day, just like having affirming providers who say like, oh no, this is something that'll probably help you. But I think outside of that is really things like journaling really helps me. Exercising really helps me. Being around animals really helps me. Like I'm obsessed with my dog. The best, honestly, I take it back. The best thing I've ever done for mental health is get a dog. Yeah. My dog totally saved my life. Being around my spouse and my close friends is really good for my mental health and physical health. I think those are the main ones. Yeah.
For people who may be listening who are trying to find that courage within themselves to embrace who they truly are, what was, I don't know, like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this, but like, was there like a specific situation or a time or something happened where you were like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I'm done, you know, fighting it. This is who I am, and I'm going forward in my life as me.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't like, for me, it was so gradual. I think I've been really terrified to transition. I think I've been really afraid of losing family members and, you know, having bad experiences at work or at school, or, you know, not knowing which bathroom to use, all that stuff. And I think that's stuff I'm still navigating. And so I did it really gradually. And I think what I've learned is that with like each gradual tiny incremental step, like things have only gotten better. And like each time I make this tiny baby step, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I waited so long to do that. And so I think that's what has helped me, is like, whether it's, you know, going by a new name or changing my pronouns or starting hormones, whatever it might be, like every time I've done it, I've been like, it's been like the second I do it, literally, like this breath of fresh air where suddenly it feels like the weight of the world has dropped off my shoulders and I feel better. And I was like so scared to do it in the first place. It's so silly. So I guess my advice to other people would be like, it's okay to go really slow, and it's okay to like test the waters. And the truth is, like, if you try something and you don't like it, you can always like stop or go back or say never mind. Like that's part of life. And I think I was so afraid that like I couldn't do that. I couldn't just say like JK, but you can.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, no, you can. Yeah. No, it's true with most things.
Yeah,
actually,
you really can. And so, if something has the power to be that good, might as well just try it. Like really, if it has the power to like change your life so positively. Like just try it, and if it doesn't work out, just stop. It's fine.
Yeah. No, I love that. JK, I'm just kidding. I love your laugh. I know I tell you this almost every time I see you, but you have the best laugh.
Oh, thank you.
So I haven't. Not every guest that I've had so far has been autistic. So if you don't mind, do you want to talk about stereotypes?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So what is your favorite stereotype about autism, and then your least favorite?
Oh my gosh. I don't know what my favorite one is. I guess my favorite one is that like the Venn diagram of like trans people and neurodivergent people is a circle. Have you heard that? Mm-hmm. It's just like this like saying that like so many autistic people are queer in some way. And I do know so many queer autistic people, and it's a stereotype, so that's not true for everyone. Like it does make me laugh. 'Cause like I feel like every time I meet a new trans person, it's like a few seconds later they're like, oh yeah, I'm autistic. Like like I think out of the like 5 or 6 trans mask people that I know, they're all autistic.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm just saying it's a thing.
Okay. No, that's very true. Yeah. I mean, the data is there. It really is. And so then what would be one of your least favorite?
I guess probably just like autistic people don't feel empathy, or like that they're not robotic. I feel like I'm the most empathetic, emotional person in the entire world. I feel things all the time so deeply, like 9 million% empathy. I'm just constantly thinking about other people. So I just feel like
to a detriment.
Yeah, probably.
And then if there was something you wish neurotypical people were more aware of about what it's like to live with autism, that they might not know, what you got anything?
Wow, that's such a good question. I would like neurotypical people to know that making things better for autistic people helps everyone, including themselves. You know, if the world was more accommodating or, more based on like universal design, like everyone would benefit. You know, I think in my perfect world, everyone, regardless of whether they have a documented disability, can request any accommodation that they need at work or school or wherever. And that's just like super normal. And it's just something everyone can do to like feel their best.
Yeah.
And I guess I would also just want neurotypical people to know that like we live in this world that's really sad sometimes because it is so segregated. Like I was in segregated special education most of my life, and like I think those systems cause segregation into adulthood, whether it's like in special programs for people to work where they aren't necessarily working with people who don't have disabilities, and like, you know, our world's just become so separate. And it hurts everyone, because I think a lot of the neurotypical people who are my friends or loved ones like enjoy having me in their life. And I think it's not just sad for autistic people to be excluded, it's sad for neurotypical people because they're missing out on like excellent friendship and fun times.
Yeah. I agree with us. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. That's right. No, I think that's great, and I really appreciate you being here today and talking from a personal and a professional point of view. It's so nice, and I appreciate all your wisdom and insight. And you guys, that's it.
That was so fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you again for tuning in to Unmasking Autism with AFO. I'm your host, Carley Marissa Dummett. Thank you again to the Oklahoma State Department of Health. And for any information on our trainings or our events, please visit www.autismfoundationok.org or follow us on social media platforms at Autism Foundation OK. As always, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.